Good afternoon, students. This is Colin Campbell speaking to you by way of video, and I wanted to just take a few minutes and reintroduce myself and give you a couple thoughts about the class and give you a face and a voice to go with the written messages that you're receiving from me. Anyhow, the class has started well already, and I'm excited to see the level of participation and the level of interest in all of you. I can usually tell within the first week how a class is going to go, and I'm excited about having all of you on this journey together with me, and I'm excited to see how we can begin to share some of the things that we've learned along the path already, some of the things that God wants us to understand about ourselves, about the path ahead, about our destiny. Already, I find it interesting that a number of you have brought up the issue of identity, and we will talk about the interrelationship between our worldview and our identity a little bit more. It's an interesting thing. It's an important aspect of our calling in life, our destiny, all of those things. You'll hear me say quite frequently that I believe identity has to lead purpose and destiny. That God, in fact, is the one who gives us our true identity. But we'll talk more about that as we go along in the course. I looked over, graded most of your reflective integrations, and those are good. Even though I think a number of you have sort of misunderstood somewhat what I'm asking for, and so I wanted to clarify that again a little bit, so I see that it's my inability maybe to communicate clearly with you. You're going to find this to be extremely helpful when you get to the latter part of the course and we begin to do our media analysis. What I'm really looking for you to be able to do is to look at what's coming in I talk about my eye gates and my ear gates and my mind gates. We are constantly being bombarded by media, by our culture, by all kinds of pieces of information, and they're vying within our mind for access and for prominence there. And a number of you, I think, have already talked about or referred to Romans 12, where we learn that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. And so part of what we're doing here in this class is learning how to renew our minds, learning how to understand what the really real is, if there is such a thing. I believe that there is. It's one of my assumptions. Nevertheless, my desire is to see all of you gain the ability to discern what's coming at you, discern where people are coming from. And I want to make it clear, this is not to be judgmental, this is not to stereotype people, it's not to profile people whatsoever. In fact, you can have people from many different cultures and many different races who have the same worldview, just as you can have people from within the same race and same culture have a whole variety of worldviews. The point is, we want to see where someone's heart is at. We want to evaluate where they're coming from. Part of that, we do that through dialogue with another person. That's why I encourage you, when you look at your movie or your TV show that you're going to evaluate, or when you look at a news article or a news broadcast, you want to listen to the deeper things that people are saying, the things that come out of the heart. Jesus said, what comes out of our mouth comes ultimately from our heart. And so the things that defile us are the things that come out of a heart that's defiled. So what we're trying to do when I give you these practice sessions to reflect on a news article or anything else, what you're trying to do is to evaluate, where is the author coming from? What is his perspective? Because two different authors those of you who've done any kind of work with the Gospels, you know that the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all come from a different perspective. Okay? Well, someone who's reporting a news item can present it with a very different worldview from another person. And when they do that, they can bias or slant the information coming toward you. And it's important to know what that bias is. So we're trying to evaluate that. So what I'm looking for you to do is not give me a review of the article or even what the outcome of that article is, but more what is the worldview of the person who's delivering that information to us. Can we tell? Sometimes you can. I realize sometimes it's tricky and you won't be able to do it. There's not enough information. Other times you're going to pick up little hints and clues. And the whole purpose of this is to practice, is to think in terms of worldviews, to think using the 7 questions of Sire, the 3 or 4 questions of Phillips, Brown, and Stone Street. It's learning how to put our minds actively in engagement in discernment mode. The Apostle Paul wrote that we are not to believe every spirit, but we need to test the spirits to see if they're from God. So part of the idea of testing someone's spirit is doing this in a way that will enable us to know where they're coming from, know what their bias is, not so that we can judge them, but so that we can understand, and so that we can start to monitor what's going into our eye gates, ear gates, and mind gates. Remember, Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your hearts, for out of it come the issues of life." We need to guard our hearts, and we do that by becoming more discerning. And the writer of Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12, says that we grow in our ability to discern good and evil through practice. So that's what we're trying to do in this class, is to gain some ability to practice what worldviews are. And in the process, we learn something about ourselves. As we start to evaluate what other people are saying, man, oftentimes it's a mirror back into our own heart to see what's going on in there. And God is always about dealing with our heart. So I hope that's helpful, and I look forward to continuing our discussion. All of you are doing a phenomenal job, even if you may have missed my point in the first exercise. I've tried to show a lot of grace, and as we go forward in the coming weeks, I think you're going to get the hang of it, and I'm excited to see how your own worldview and what you believe is going to result in having a deep conviction in your heart. I believe it's going to strengthen your faith. So all that to say, welcome to the class. I'm glad to be on this journey with you. God bless you.